Hello and welcome to the Shaw Local Bears Insider Podcast. We are back. It is Friday, November 1st. Michael, did you have a good Halloween?
Yeah, it was a good Halloween. I actually watched Silence of the Lambs for the first time in my life. So now
Oh,
I,
wow.
I understand a lot of references after 29 years. So yeah, but that was fun. That was a good way to kind of spend it. I feel like, once you get into your late 20s, you're kind of caught in the middle of like what is Halloween for me now. So it's turned into watching a scary movie.
I went to a friend's house and helped pass out candy to the kids. So I guess that makes me old now. But that was my Halloween. We ate some chili. It was fun. I've never seen
Nice.
Silence of the Lambs. I don't know what that says about me, but I'm not really a scary movie guy.
Yeah, I just kind of like saw it on Amazon Prime, and I was like, you know what? I've never seen this. I don't know any of the references, and it turns out that there are a lot of references. So, but it was good. I was like, I don't want to sound like I'm not even Gen Z, but I know that a lot of older movies kind of take a little bit slower to develop, and that's how I felt for the first half
Yeah.
hour to 45 minutes. But then eventually, once we got into it, I was like, oh, okay, I get it. I get what the hype is about.
You recommend or no?
I would recommend. I think it's
Okay.
worth it for the references and
Okay.
just for the. I think the not to get too cinema or whatever like that, but I did like the way that it was done, so I would definitely recommend it.
Nothing like kicking the show off with a movie review 30 years too late. We are back. It is Bears Cardinals this week. On Sunday, the Bears are traveling to Phoenix. This is the Shaw Local Bears Insider Podcast. I'm Sean Hammond, Shaw Local Bears beat reporter. He's Michael Dwojak, our very own sports enterprise reporter. If you're watching with us on YouTube, thanks for joining us. Do us a favor, hit the thumbs up. That's a great way to support the show. If you're listening after the fact, you can leave us a review on Spotify or Apple, wherever you get your podcast, and keep an eye on our Twitter pages. We'll let you know when we're going to go live. We've got Bears Cardinals, of course, but it's still, honestly, all week it has felt like this Hail Mary play has been just hanging over the Bears' heads. Obviously, the players and the coaches are trying to move on from this. We've asked Matt Eberflus multiple times, what's the fallout of this going to be? Is Tyreek Stevenson going to be benched to start this game? We don't have an answer. He has not given us really a clear answer. Kevin Byard said it doesn't matter if he does it in public or not. If there's consequences behind the scenes, that's fine with him. He's a team captain. He's a leader. At the same time, I think a lot of Bears fans are wondering, what the heck, man? Michael, what's your stance? Do you feel like there needs to be some sort of, whether it's just Flus saying something in front of the media or whether it's benching him, does there have to be some sort of public punishment for this?
I'm caught in a weird spot with this, where part of me is like, part of me wants to move on. Like, I just don't want to keep on harping on the same moment and that sort of stuff. But I understand the need to talk about all this because, listen, this is what, like, the last couple of years you've kind of given Eberflus like the benefit of the doubt. You're like, well, the roster's not there. Don't blame him yet. But like, the roster is getting there. I'm not saying it's there right now. There's still a lot of additions. This isn't a Super Bowl team by any means, but there are a lot of playmakers on this team. So I think it's interesting just that you're starting to see a lot of, how is he going to be when this team is contending for a Super Bowl? So I think, is this decision such a big deal where you're just kind of like, well, if he benches him, that's a big deal. It's hard for me to say because, they can't find him because that's not in the contract, right? So you can't do that. And I mean, in the grand scheme of things, we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but like, you're injured in the secondary. Like, Brisker is still gone. Tyler Gordon is still gone. Sure, you have Terrell Smith, who obviously is a good backup, but are you really, like, what is bigger to you right now? Are you trying to send a message or are you trying to win a football game? So I think Eberflus is kind of in a tough spot. And I think you see a lot of people being like, well, he needs to send a message. He needs to do this. He needs to do that. I don't know if there's a perfect answer to this, but I do know that the best thing that he can do right now is get this team ready to win a game that feels like a must win, because you really need to win games here in the NFC, and that's what Sunday is. So, long story short, I think that you do need to, whether that's in-house the way they want to do it and, with it, I think that needs to be done. And it seems like that's been done. I don't really care whether that's outside for the media or for the fans to know about.
Here's my sense of this situation, having covered the Matt Eberflus years closely and covered this team for a while. I honestly feel like just because Matt isn't saying anything publicly doesn't mean that he's not going to bench Tyreek for a short while. I mean, it could literally be as short as he's not on the field for the first play, like something like that, or maybe the first series, or maybe the first quarter. But I don't even know. Like, you're right, they're really banged up, and Terrell Smith is healthy now. He came back in that game against Washington, so he's available. I mean, he's your top backup at that spot. You would feel okay putting him in there, but you're already playing Josh Blackwell at the nickel. You're already playing Elijah Hicks at safety.
Right.
How long do you really want to keep Tyreek out of the game? I think in Matt Eberflus's mind, I honestly think this comes down to he doesn't want to give the Cardinals any idea of who's going to start the game at cornerback. And I know that's like a really coachy thing. That's like it seems ridiculous on some level, like especially if you're only going to sit him for a play or two. But that's how Matt Eberflus operates, and he doesn't want to give his opponent any little thing. And I think that is the only reason why he wouldn't come out and say, yeah, I'm going to bench Tyreek for a little bit. At the same time, too, like he was also kind of not getting mad, but he basically told some of his players to not air some of this stuff out in the media. I mean, he essentially it was reaction to Kevin Byard saying, maybe criticizing the second to last play, and DJ maybe criticizing, or you could call it criticizing, you call it whatever you want, second guessing the call at the goal line. He doesn't want that stuff out there in public. And this might just be a case where he's going to do something, but he just doesn't want it out there.
Yeah, and I think that part of me is kind of like, that's fair. I think that he has shown, throughout the years that he's a player's coach, right? Like, I don't really remember him ever, running someone over with the bus or anything like that, going after someone. Like, he has always kind of handled things internally. Even the stuff with Jalen Johnson at the beginning of when he got there, he was never like, Jalen Johnson's got to prove it. Like, he's not whatever. He pretty much is just like, you got to prove it on the field. And Jalen Johnson obviously did, and that built, strong character and that kind of stuff. And that obviously landed with Johnson getting a big contract from the Bears. But, I don't, this whole conversation is so interesting because I understand why we get so fixated about the Hail Mary. I understand why we get so fixated about the Tyreek Stevenson punishment. But I think the bigger thing from all of this is the process working? Clearly, for three quarters, the offense was not working. And it's good to see that Caleb Williams was able to lead you to two, what should have been game-winning touchdowns in the fourth quarter. But the offensive play calling is not working. That's a coaching decision, right? The lack of I don't know if understanding is the right word, but Eberflus's refusal to say or even come to terms with saying that, the 13-yard play before the Hail Mary was important, or why didn't we use the touchdowns? I think those are much bigger conversation points than the Hail Mary play. Because the Hail Mary play, listen, yeah, Tyreek Stevenson messed up. It's kind of a fluky play, and it stinks to, end your game like that and to lose the game like that. But there are so many different plays that kind of led to that moment. And I think those are more important to kind of talk about as opposed to just do you bench Tyreek Stevenson for one play and the Hail Mary and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen the stuff on the way, of course, it's blown up on Twitter this week. Shane Waldron spoke yesterday, and he was asked, like, would he run the play again? And he starts his answer off by using the word yeah, but I don't know that if you actually listen to the full answer, I don't know if he was exactly saying that yes, he would run that goal line play again. Obviously, there's going to be, when a play doesn't work out, these guys are gonna have some regrets there. And I think obviously he doesn't want to come out and say, yeah, I called the wrong play, I wouldn't do that again. He's not going to do that. And so I think that's all kind of overblown. Obviously, that was a bad call in that situation. But yeah, like you like you're saying, Michael, you can criticize a lot of the calls throughout the whole game. And so at some point, all these guys have to take responsibility for that. The coaches for their part and the players for their part. And really, I'm not surprised at how much flack that Matt Eberflus is getting this week. Obviously, you lose a game like that, there's going to be some criticism.
Yeah.
But it feels like this is kind of at a precarious point here, where this, not to say that this game is a must-win game or anything like that. I don't think it is, but this could still go downhill quickly. You lose to the Cardinals, you don't look good against the Patriots, and then you got a really tough stretch with your NFC North opponents, like we've been talking about all year long. It's going to get tougher in late November and into December. The Bears got to start winning some games here. Do you think this stretch right here, this game? I mean, on the one hand, I do think the Bears are going to be really, really angry, and they're going to come out and play really well. That's just my sense of where they're at. But this seems like a really important stretch for Matt Eberflus right now.
Yeah, I think for starting, like, most of the season, he's been coaching for his job. But I think you're coaching for your job right now, right? Like you haven't. I forget what the stat is. I don't think he's 3-17 on the road. He hasn't. I don't think he's officially won a Sunday road game. I think all the other Sunday games have been like on the other day. Like, and again, context is important. Where you're like, well, those teams weren't good. Those teams were trying to win. This team is trying to win. Ryan Poles has said from the beginning of the season that you're trying to win. So, listen. I know you said obviously this isn't necessarily a must win game, but if you're trying to make the playoffs, this is a game where you need to show that, hey, it was a tough week. We're coming off a tough loss, but we're going against a defense that has given up a lot of chunk plays. Our offense needs to show growth. Our defense, yeah, it's banged up, but it needs to start making plays. I know the Cardinals are, they've won 2, last-minute games, and they've shown that they can do that, right? But I think the Cardinals have shown a lot of flaws, and I don't think going to Arizona is necessarily hostile territory with, people call Phoenix like the westernmost Chicago suburb. So there are going to be a lot of Bears fans in that game. So all that to say, I think this is a game that you need to win if you're Matt Eberflus, because you need to – listen, you can't keep coming up with excuses. And eventually you need to start coming up with wins. You need the offense to start rolling right from the start of the game. And your defense needs to continuously play the way it has. So, yeah, I do think this is an important stretch because you need to beat the Cardinals. You need to beat the Patriots. And then you got that big Packers game coming up in a few weeks where if you go if you don't win these next 2 games, I think you're putting yourself in a really tough spot to even try to make the playoffs at this point.
Michael Rick says, of all the Chicago media, Michael is the only one making sense.
Rick's my new favorite guy.
Rick is your favorite.
He is my new number 1 guy right now.
Robert, thanks for joining the show. Says caught me by surprise. Yeah, I apologize, guys. I didn't tweet out the link last night. Actually, I think Michael was that you who tweeted out this morning, yeah. Michael. Thanks for doing that. That's my bad on that. I didn't give you guys much of a heads up. Yeah, so we can let's turn the page on this Hail Mary thing. We've talked about everybody's talked about it all week long. I'm still getting asked about it by friends and family. Like, man, that was crazy. Let's just turn the page. Let's talk about the Cardinals here. Injuries first. Let's kind of dive into the injuries. It's Friday morning. We don't have the Friday injury report yet, but I can tell you that yesterday Montez Sweat was back. He's got a shin injury, but I don't think that's a big issue. I think he's going to play in the game. The bigger issues are on the offensive line. And we already kind of mentioned Jaquan Brisker and Kyler Gordon, both still out. They have not practiced this week. I would imagine they're probably going to miss this game. But then on the offensive line, you got Tevin Jenkins and Braxton Jones both sat out yesterday. Both have knee injuries. That's your entire left side of the offensive line. That's a concern. Karan Amagaji Matt Eberflus told us he's not going to play. He's got a calf injury. So, that's one of your backup tackles, the guy who filled in at left tackle when Braxton left. Larry Borum has been back to full participation. I expect what we're going to see is Larry Borum at left tackle. Ryan Bates has been back at practice this week, but I'm less certain that he's going to be back to play. He's been limited both practices this week. So I don't know if we're going to see Larry Borum, or I'm sorry. I don't know if we're going to see Ryan Bates filling in at left guard. So I don't know. This could be a situation where we're looking at one of those, could we see Nate Davis? I don't really know what that's going to look like at left guard if Tevin is not able to play. Tevin was limited on Wednesday, but that was a walkthrough. And then when they had a real practice, he sat out. So I think Tevin is going to come down to whether or not he practices on Friday.
And did you also mention that Bill Murray, he's out as well?
Yeah, Bill Murray is on IR, so he will not be available as your backup at guard.
Yeah, I mean, for all the, hoopla and all the, we're saying that they're going to rebound against the Cardinals. This offensive line situation is not good. And that's just to
No.
put it mildly. Like, the line already has been bad the way that they played. Obviously, they did not play well against the Commanders. But it's kind of difficult to figure out what this makeshift offensive line is going to be, right? Like, I know a lot of people may not want it, but I think you are going to have to put Nate Davis back in there, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think I'm trying to figure out, like, if Braxton Jones and Tevin Jenkins can't play, what does the left side of that line look like, you would think?
Yeah, I mean, it's either well at tackle. I do think they activate Larry Borom. He's still technically on IR,
Sure.
but
Yeah.
I think he'll get activated Saturday and be on the roster. Now the guard situation. I mean, your options on the roster right now are Nate Davis or Doug Kramer. And so I think you go with one of them, and maybe it is Kramer. I mean, he did play some left guard in that game, a fair amount of left guard. So maybe it is Doug Kramer, but it's probably one of those guys, unless you're calling somebody up from the practice squad.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, I think it'll be interesting just to see what the. I don't know if there is a perfect answer to this, right? Like, I don't know what the right combination is, because most of these guys, other than, Darnell Wright and, Shellen, everyone else is being moved around for much of the season.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to figure out what the perfect mix is. So I think this is going to say a lot about, I think this is a game where, because of this is where Shane Waldron kind of needs to redeem himself, right? Is it like, I feel like you need to come up with a game plan, not only to score early, which this team has just not been able to do for some reason, whether it's scripted plays, non-scripted plays, whatever you want to call them. This team doesn't score right from the beginning. I think this is a game where Shane Waldron needs to realize what he has on the field, and he needs to, put Caleb Williams in a position to succeed. Does that mean to run the ball a lot? I know that this offensive line might make it hard for, Swift and Roshan to be able to find spots. But I think that this is a game where you really need Shane Waldron to put Caleb Williams in a good situation, whether that's, quick screen plays, quick bubble screens, whether that's, quick outside passes. I know you're not going to see a bunch of 30 or 40-yard passes, because I just don't think that Caleb's going to have enough time. So I'm really interested to see, what does this offense game plan look like, because you with the offensive line you have right now, I don't think you can really run what you want to. Which I know a lot of Bears fans would say, well, that's good, because what's been called hasn't really been working.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point. Maybe they do keep some tight ends in there a little bit extra. You keep a Travis Homer in there to block. You're probably not going to see a lot of 5-man protection and 7-step dropbacks. I don't think this is the game for that. The good news in all of this, yes, obviously, if you're a Bears fan, you're concerned about the situation on the offensive line. But the good news in all of this is that you got an Arizona Cardinals team whose defense is pretty much at the bottom of just about everything. I mean, they're one of the worst passing defenses through the first 8 weeks of the season. They're not much better against the run either. And so this should be an offense that you can score points against. But yeah, obviously, if the offensive line is in shambles, that's going to be hard to do. We're going to dive into our pregame segments here, Michael. Our game within the game, and maybe you're thinking about that offensive line. I don't know where your head's at, but what's your matchup to watch in this? What are you thinking as you what position groups or what one-on-one matchups are you watching as you head into Bears Cardinals?
I think I'm looking forward to. I don't know if I want to say Jalen Johnson specifically with Marvin Harrison, because I think Marvin Harrison, the way from the highlights and the tape I've seen, I think that they move Harrison a lot around the field. So I don't know if they would always be playing him against Jalen Johnson, or whether it ends up being Tyreek Stevenson or whoever is on the other side of the ball. But I think limiting him is going to be crucial, right? Like, I think the Cardinals have gone pretty much, obviously they've gone as far as Kyler Murray takes them, but if Marvin Harrison's having a good game, the Cardinals are usually having a good game. So I think that that's going to be a major key of, can the Bears, hone in on Harrison? Because, I know that they have, the Cardinals have a lot of playmakers. I think McBride, I think he's actually their number one pass catcher.
He is,
ahead of Harrison. But, Harrison's got big play potential. You've seen a lot of big plays from him. He's been dealing with some concussions. Or a concussion the last couple of weeks, and he came back and played pretty well. last week. But I am curious to see what the matchup is. So I guess I'll do a general secondary versus Harrison because I know they like to move him a lot. But I think if you can contain him, I think that takes away a major threat for Kyler Murray, and that forces him into some mistakes. And I think if you can force Kyler Murray into some mistakes, I think that really helps your defense get off the field earlier.
I like that. That's my number one. Like if you're just tuning into this game, like that's got to be the matchup you're watching. Is how do the Bears defend Marvin Harrison? Also, just because like this guy's a rookie and he's still kind of like new to the league. It's like I mean, I watched a little bit of Cardinals this week, but I haven't really like seen a ton of Cardinals football over the first 8 weeks of the season, other than what I was watching ahead of this matchup. And it's like, yeah, I'm just curious, what this guy looks like and how the Bears defend him. That's certainly a good one. That was top of my list. Number 2 on my list of game within the game matchup to watch here. I had. And staying on the same side of the ball, and it's not necessarily one guy, but I guess it's mostly just like that entire Bears defensive line and Kyler Murray. And we saw how Jaden Daniels had so much success outside of the pocket and moving. He was 14 of 17 on throws from outside the pocket. He was able to move a little bit while not necessarily like scrambling, not running for yards,
right,
but moving and finding throwing lanes. And clearly that was something that the Bears struggled with. And I know Montez Sweat left that game a little bit early, and I do think he's going to be back for this one. But that's another area where this Bears defense has to be careful because Kyler Murray can move. And Kyler Murray is their second leading rusher on this team right now. I believe 344 rushing yards, a couple of touchdowns. That is definitely it's always tough when you have these running quarterbacks, but you got to contain those edges, and that's going to be really important for those edge defenders, for the Montez Sweats and the Jacob Martins, the DeMarcus Walker, to really wrap up and make life hard on that guy, because Kyler can make plays, and he's played really well this season. And shutting down Marvin Harrison would be a big step in limiting that offense. But at the end of the day, this is a quarterback who can take off and run at any point. And you got to be careful with this dude.
Yeah, you definitely need to contain him, right? And I think you've seen, I know Jane Daniels did. I think, looking back at it, I think he had a pretty good game. I think the Bears were able to swallow him up a couple times, and I think that he was able to. It felt like a 50-50 battle. So I think you want to see more of that, right, against Kyler Murray. I know, Jaden's bigger, obviously lankier. Kyler's obviously a little bit shorter, more compact. So maybe I don't know if that makes it easier or not to tackle him or keep him in contain or anything like that. But yeah, you definitely need Montez Sweat. If he's able to play, and I think obviously he'll be able to play. If he's able to continue that, if you got Dexter and Billings able to go up the middle, I think you've got the line in order to contain him. And as much as if you're able to get rid of Harrison, and if you're able to contain Kyler Murray, I think that forces a bunch of 3 and outs, 6 and outs, whatever you want to call them. I think that really leads to short offensive drives, which I know the Cardinals have kind of been prone to do a little bit here this season.
Okay, most valuable Bear, guys. If you're listening with us, throw your MVB in the chat. We'll throw them up on the screen. Who you got for your most valuable Bear this week? And just to recap, to update, last week, Michael, you picked first. You went with Montez Sweat. I went with DJ Moore. We're doing this based off fantasy points, and so we. I
don't like the way you're grinning over there.
No, you know what? This is good for you. Montez Sweat had a huge game based on the individual defensive player fantasy scoring system that I this is high tech here. I Googled, how do you score that? So yeah, Montez Sweat had a big game. He had a sack. He had 3 solo tackles, 1 assisted tackle, and 2 tackles for loss. That was 13.5 fantasy points by our scoring system. And DJ Moore had just 4.4. So that is a win for you, Michael. You've cut into my lead. It's through 7 weeks because we had the bye week. I have 4. You have 3 in our best of 17 series here. Okay. But I get to pick first this week. So I'm going first, and I know it's early in the season. I know I've already burned one Caleb Williams. We're only allowed to pick Caleb 3 times. I'm going to burn it. I'm taking my second Caleb Williams. This is a terrible pass defense that the Cardinals got on the other side. I think Caleb has a big game. I think he rebounds after what was a really slow moving, tough game last week in Washington. I think Caleb rebounds. He's going to be inside in Arizona. The conditions are going to be perfect. I think that the Bears passing attack gets moving, and I'm taking Caleb Williams.
Yeah, I forgot whether you and I were going first, honestly. So I was preparing myself for all situations, and I was debating whether to take Caleb. And I think that's a good move. I think that this pass defense isn't great, and I think Caleb has shown that he's been able to take advantage of those weaker pass defenses. Right? Obviously, you'll have the question of, is the offensive line going to give him enough time or anything like that? What's the play calling going to be?
That's a fair concern.
But I do think that Caleb. Listen, that fourth quarter, those last couple of drives, you saw some throws that you haven't seen from a Bears quarterback in forever, or if ever, right? So I think despite slow starts and maybe lack of accuracy at the beginning of the game last week, I think he's shown development. And I think that, listen, this goes to the general picture of me thinking that everyone's going to be motivated for this game. And I think that includes QB1.
Yeah, I do think the Bears are going to come out really ready to hit the ground running. Mike Johnson is taking Rome Odunze. I like that pick. Rome's been quiet lately. I do think this could be a chance for him to have a good game. Robert has Cole Kmet. CJ also has Cole Kmet. Rick has DeAndre Swift. Michael, you're picking second here. I already took Caleb off the board. Who do you got?
I would be tempted to take Kmet, but I just haven't seen Shane Waldron, for some reason, forgets that he has a tight end. I don't know why. There have been so many games where, he gets his first catch like in the third or late in the third quarter, in the fourth quarter. So that's weird. So I don't know if I want to. I like the pick. I understand the logic of it, but I don't know if I want to. I'm trying to get tight here. I'm trying to make this a 4-4 game. So I think I'm going to go with the hot hand. I'm going with DeAndre Swift.
Okay.
I think the fact that he's been running the ball fairly well now. And I think that he's a pass catching threat. A lot of short passes can go to him right now. So, it's a double-edged sword where it's like if Caleb has a good game, that's good for DeAndre Swift too, but that's probably not as good for me. So I'm hoping that the Bears run the ball a lot here. So I think DeAndre Swift has another big game, and I think he's going to continuously stack those games as he continues to show that he is a playmaker, both as a runner and as a pass catcher.
I do like that pick. I like that pick. He had a big game last week. He's been playing really well lately. I also want to just point out that you picked him in weeks 1 and week 3, and he bit you in the butt. That wasn't. You're going back to the well. You're going back to the well. So your confidence in DeAndre Swift is back up there. It seems
it's back up there. I think he had his most rushing yards since week 2 last season, right? So I think something's working. And again, this Cardinals defense isn't great. I mean, you've seen them give up a bunch of chunk plays. I think DeAndre Swift has shown you that he can go for the long yard run. He can also take a screen and go for a bunch of yards, right? So I think he's a playmaker. It's just obviously it's up to the players to execute, but it's up to the coaches to put him in the right spot. So I'm really interested to see what this offense, especially at the beginning of the game, is going to look like.
Okay, surprise prediction. What is your surprise prediction? Something that we're not thinking about that you think is a realistic thing that might happen this Sunday?
I think, I don't know how much of a surprise this is, but I think Tyreek Stevenson has himself a game, whether that's an interception, whether it's a forced fumble.
I like this.
I'm really close to say that he starts, actually. I don't know. Obviously, I know there's reporting out there, so I don't know how. I haven't heard anything, so I'm not going to pretend to be like, oh, I know he's going to start. I'm not going to start. I'm not going to go that far. But I think he has a big game. I think he has a rebound game. I think he seemed like he understood the magnitude of what went wrong, how bad of a game it was. So I think I'm going to go with Tyreek Stevenson. Is going to be having a big game. He'll force a turnover. He'll make some big stops, and I think he has a big redemption game.
Robert says, imagine if Tyreek gets a pick 6, that would really change the narrative. Yeah, absolutely. You and Robert are thinking alike. Rick has one here, and I was half tempted to say this. This is not my surprise prediction, but Rick says his surprise prediction is Waldron runs Kramer on the goal line again. A very, very small part of me thinks that that's a possibility as well. I also think it's entirely possible that that they have taken that play out of the playbook and burned it somewhere, and they're never going to run that play again. I don't know if it goes wrong a second time, I think they fire everybody the next day. I don't know that you can screw that play up twice with a guy who's never had a carry in the NFL, or at least hadn't until Sunday.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is a huge surprise either. I think Caleb, and obviously I picked Caleb to be my most valuable Bear. I think he's going to throw 3 touchdown passes. I think he has another. I honestly think this could be a game that looks similar in some ways, at least offensively. So just talking offensively, similar to what they did against Jacksonville, where I think Caleb is going to be throwing the ball around the yard a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets to 3 touchdown passes again. I'm going with a big day for Caleb. I don't know if that's a huge surprise. I don't know if that surprises anybody all that much. But this is a Cardinals defense that you can take advantage of. I think the real key to this game, to me, is going to be on the other side, and whether the Bears defense can keep doing what it's been doing against a really good quarterback.
Yeah, I don't know if it's interesting, right? Because I feel like we're recency bias. You look at the last 2 quarters. He did not look good the first 3 quarters. He was off. He was missing throws. It was not a good first 3 quarters. So I think it would be fair to say that it'd be a little bit surprising just based off of the momentum they had. I also like Robert's prediction scoring on the first drive. It's kind of sad that would be a surprise, right? Like that kind of tells you where the Bears offense is at this point. But listen, it would be a surprise, and until they show us otherwise, I mean, I think that's fair.
Mike's surprise prediction: no punts from the Bears. Yeah, that would be a surprise. Certainly, anytime there's no punts, it's a surprise. But Mike's trying to deprive us of Tory Taylor. I don't know if that. I don't know where I stand on that.
Give me one 70-yard punt, and I'm happy. That's all I really need.
Yeah. Okay. We've reached our last segment here. Your pick, Michael. Who do you got winning this game? And I guess what are sort of your keys as you're looking at this matchup?
I've been hemming and hawing about this all week because you're like, well, the locker room isn't great. Players are talking out loud. Coaching's at a low point. At the same time, I can make the argument that this team is motivated as heck, right? Like they really want to win this game. They knew what happened last week. They're tired of, listen, this has been a national story. It's been on all the national TV shows. They've talked about it ad nauseum. It seems like everyone in the group chat, and you and me are kind of tired of talking about this, hearing about this. Yeah. And I'm sure they're tired. I don't know how much they listen to it, but there's a part of them that listens to it, right? They talk to people. They see things, right? Like they know what's going on out there. So I think they're pretty tired of it. I think, the Cardinals are coming in after back-to-back nice wins, but those were last-minute wins where they look shaky for much of the game, and I think that the offense has been able to just pick up big plays. So because of all that, I think the Bears win this game. I think I like your offensive production performance picks, so I think I'll go with the 28-24 win for the Bears. I think it's a single score. I think the Cardinals have one last stop to win it, and I think that the Bears are able to get a stop there. This just feels like everyone knows what's at stake at this game. So I think that the Bears go out there to card. And I know it's a road game, but listen, there'll be a bunch of Bears fans there. So I think it'll be a comfortable Bears road game.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Certainly flights out to Phoenix this weekend from Chicago are expensive. I would imagine that means a lot of Bears fans have bought those up. I think we're going to see a lot of Bears fans in the stadium on Sunday. I think the Bears are going to be able to score a couple of touchdowns in this game. I think the bigger question, like I kind of mentioned already, is can they slow down James Conner and Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr. And I do think that they'll be able to do that. I don't know that they're going to have the same red zone success quite like they did against Washington. That was pretty remarkable. Up until that Hail Mary play, that they were able to keep that offense out of the end zone. That was a really, really impressive game up until that last play for the defense. I do think the Bears win this game. I do think that they're going to come into this game a little bit agitated from what happened last week. They're going to take that out. Unfortunately, for the Cardinals, I think they're going to take that out on the Cardinals. And I do think that they win this game. I think I have it a little bit closer. I got 24-20 Bears win. But I think the Bears are going to win this game. I think that they are able to hold the Cardinals out of the end zone enough that they're able to pull through and win this game. I'm thinking about this and I'm thinking, okay, I got Caleb Williams throwing 3 touchdowns and I only picked 24 points. Maybe I want a little more than that. I don't know. We'll stick with it. You know what? I think he throws 3 touchdown passes and they win 24-20. They'll throw on tack on a field goal at some point too. But yeah, so we're both picking the Bears. I don't know if that should scare us or not, but that's where we're at.
Yeah, and I agree with Robert's point. Am I going to be the one who says that the Bears give up more than 21 points? That is true. I guess I'm trying to get at is they're going to score a bunch, but I think it's still going to be a close game. So whether it's 20, we can make it a 24-21 game, whatever you want to make it. I think it's going to be a close game, but I do feel like the Bears win. And I think, going back to what I said earlier, I think that the Bears realize what this game is, whether that's because of the players' leadership, whether that's because of Matt Eberflus's leadership, and he's able to show that he's getting everyone in the right pace. But I think this Bears team knows what's at stake here. You lose this game, you have a really tough spot of getting into the playoffs. I think it goes back to how much of a must-win game this is, but I think this is as close to a must-win game as you can have in November. These are November games, December games. These are games that you need to win if you want to make the playoffs. With the second half of the schedule you have, sure, Minnesota looks a little bit easier. They're kind of coming back down to earth as we kind of expected them to do. But Green Bay's still tough. Detroit is a juggernaut. San Francisco is always tough. There are a bunch of tough games to play in the second half, like we've talked about all season. So if you want to win, if you want to figure things out and take the next step as an organization, this is a game you need to win, whether that's for Matt Eberflus, Caleb Williams, Ryan Poles even. So I think there's a lot of riding on a game that obviously happening here in the beginning of November.
Yeah, and I know we've said this. We said this with the Colts game. We said this obviously last week with the Commanders game. Like, good teams have to win these close games if you want to be in the playoff hunt when it's all said and done. And we've been talking, I don't know, since August, since May when the schedule came out. Like the first half of the schedule, they need to pick up some wins and put yourself in a good place. Not to say that you can't beat, Minnesota or Green Bay or Detroit. Those teams aren't unbeatable, but obviously they're all looking really good. And so the second half of the schedule is going to be tough. Yeah, they'll probably pick up a win that maybe we don't see coming. Talking about the Bears. But now is the time to put yourself in a good position, because it could go really, really poorly the second half of the year. You got the 49ers in there as well. It's not going to be an easy stretch down there. Yeah, CJ, this game is at 3:00. So we're a little bit later kickoff. Funky situation in that, it's daylight savings time, but Arizona doesn't do that. So it's actually a 2:05 local time kickoff in Arizona. So that's your fun fact for the day. But 3:00 here in Chicago. It should be perfect conditions. Obviously, they're playing inside. They're playing at Arizona. This will be a fun one. Robert, yes, I love this. Thanks for throwing this up here, Robert. 9:25 Welsh time. If anybody else out there, Robert's got you covered. It's a 9:25 kickoff in Wales. Thanks for throwing that up there. Love that. We're not sure what the schedule is for Monday. We will be sure to tweet it out, guys. I'm going to be traveling back from Arizona. We're going to figure that out. We're also kind of debating what to do with the trade deadline. I don't know if the Bears are going to be super active. But we'll tweet it out. We'll let you know when we're going to go live. Thank you all for joining us. As always, we love having you guys here every Monday and Friday during the season. Do us a favor, hit the thumbs up. Great way to support the show on YouTube. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, keep an eye on our Twitter pages. We will let you know when we're going live. Be sure to head to shawlocal.com to read all of our Bears coverage. And please consider subscribing. That's the number one best way to support our show. He's Michael Dwojak. You can find him on Twitter at mdwojak94. I'm Sean Hammond. You can find me at Sean_Hammond. This has been the Shaw Local Bears Insider Podcast. Thanks for listening, everybody. Have a great weekend and enjoy the game.